Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of yet another very busy news day. Coming up, Susan Crabtree will join us here at 4:30 from Real Clear Politics. We talked to her about her exclusive reporting involving what's going on inside of the Secret Service and the decision-making that led to that awful assassination attempt on a defiant Donald Trump Saturday. Brent Bazell from the Media Research Center at 5 o'clock. And then Mike Davis talks to us from the Article 3 Project at 5:30. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yeah, that image of President Trump standing up after being shot in the ear, blood dripping down his face, across his face, having been lying on the ground with the Secret Service lying on top of him. He stands up, and even if before they can even get him off stage, he says, wait. He steps up, pumps his fist into the air, says, fight, 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 with the American flag flying right there behind him. Photographers snapping away from the Associated Press, the New York Times, everywhere. Just one of the most amazing moments in American history. One of the most amazing moments. I instantly thought of Teddy Roosevelt because Roosevelt was shot while giving a speech. Roosevelt was able to finish it. Roosevelt gets shot. He had a bullet in him, and he finished his speech. He was a tough guy. Trump clearly wanted to keep going. Trump, you saw him. If you rewatch the video, and believe me, we've seen it a million times now. If you rewatch the video, he tries getting towards the microphone to say something, and the Secret Service, no, they're trying to drag him away. They got to get him out of there. Obviously, that's their job. They got to protect him. But holy cow. If you had any doubts about this guy being just, I don't know, just sheer force of will. I thought, can I use the phrase? I'm just going to say it. He's a hard ass. Like, for him to stand up and just raise his fist in the air and shout, fight, 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 blood. May all of our sons be like that. That was unbelievable. That was, you had a lot of emotion seeing something like that. Horror, of course, about an assassination attempt on the President of the United States, the former and future President of the United States. And then immense pride in his demeanor in the face of that. And the crowd. I heard my buddy Chris Plant saying today, did you notice they didn't stampede? People weren't all running for their lives, stepping on each other, smashing past each other. It was a unified crowd that was waiting. They were waiting to see what happened next. They were waiting to see if Trump emerged okay. And he did. He stood up. He said he had a chunk of his ear blown off. He's been telling reporters. I know he talked to Selena Zito. He talked to Byron York. He talked to some others. His ear was blown up. I guess for the convention this week, they're going to be changing some features of it. In particular, his speech. His speech is changing. If you were listening to O'Connor and Company this morning, Selena Zito relaying that the speech itself, it went from being, a big indictment of Biden's time in office to probably a much more unifying speech this Thursday, designed to bring America together in the wake of this horrific attack on President Trump. I'm sure that changed a lot. Also, you're going to see the speeches that all of the various people who have been invited to speak from that stage. Apparently, the Trump campaign is asking them that they stick to their policy speeches, to get up there and make their case for America and the directions we need to go in and these policies we need to address, the problems we need to fix, the out-of-control border, the out-of-control inflation, the out-of-control crime, all of the things that are motivating voters on an individual level to show up to vote this year. They want the speakers of this convention to focus on that and not to spend the whole time talking about an assassination attempt on President Trump. So that's what you have to look forward to. And let me just remind everyone, we will be carrying it live right here on WMAL beginning at 9 p.m. each evening. You can tune in right there to the convention on your favorite radio station. You can actually listen to this thing, which will be good. You'll get to hear it firsthand live right here on WMAL. That'll be neat. Some news this hour. RFK Jr. is now going to receive Secret Service protection. Alejandro Mayorkas, the worst DHS secretary of all time. DHS hasn't existed that long, but Alejandro Mayorkas definitely has succeeded at being the worst of the secretaries to have run it. He announced today that RFK Jr. is receiving Secret Service protection now at the request of the president, which they could have done a long time ago. But you know why they didn't? You know why they didn't give RFK Jr. protection? Because they didn't want to legitimize that he was a presidential candidate. That's why. Because that's how petty this White House is. And so full of themselves and so drunk on power. No, he can't have it. RFK Jr. now receiving that Secret Service protection. It only took a bullet through the ear of another presidential candidate, the likely next president of the United States, for that to happen. Meanwhile, on the floor of the convention itself in Milwaukee, Donald Trump Jr. was asked practically live to respond to the news that President Trump has announced J.D. Vance, the Ohio senator, as his running mate. MSNBC sticking a microphone in Don Jr.'s face. Listen to the exchange that this reporter and Don Jr. had.
What is that change going to look like, Don? What practically, your father as president, I think you would even say, was a divisive figure. What's it going to look like in the second term?
I don't think he was a divisive figure at all. I think the media created divisiveness around him. They lied about Russia collusion. They said he was a traitor. They went after him in every which way as possible. If the media actually starts being an honest broker, talking about the things that he did, the prosperity he brought, the peace deals that he signed around the world, rather than the disaster that we're living right now, I think you do everyone in the country a big favor.
I know immigration's important to him. I covered the family separation crisis closely. Will we continue to see policies like separating 5,000 children deliberately from their parents?
You mean the Obama administration?
You know they didn't do that, sir.
Okay, sure.
Will there be a second family separation policy?
It's MSDNC, so I expect nothing less from you clowns. Even today, even 48 hours later, you couldn't wait. You couldn't wait with your lies and with your nonsense. So just get out of here.
Just get out of here, he says. I've had enough with you. I'm done with you. You can leave. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye. And he's right. Don Jr. was right. The instant fact check on remember, who built the cages, Joe? Who built the cages, Joe? Joe, please tell us who built the cages. You gonna bring back family separation? They've already begun. They've already begun. Let's just, go back to the old lying playbook. And if the question was, are you going to enforce immigration law? Are you going to deport people who are here illegally? Will there be consequences for illegally immigrating into the country? With any hope, the answer to that is a resounding yes. That there should be consequences for breaking our nation's laws to prevent other people from attempting to do the same thing. And there's MSNBC rooting for chaos again. Yeah, you heard Don Jr. say they couldn't wait 48 hours. They couldn't even wait, once again, to spread divisive lies about President Trump, the kind of divisive lies that served as the basis for an attack like the one we saw Saturday. Now, we have not actually gotten the motive from this guy yet, have we? Have we? In fact, Chris is in Westminster right now, in Westminster, Maryland, line 2. Chris, good afternoon. Chris, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Vince. How you doing, man?
I'm
Love
all right.
the show.
Thank you.
Long-time WFL listener. And like you said a couple seconds ago, we are 48 hours into this. And do you find it odd that we haven't heard a peep from the family or a representative from this satanic assassin? Not to hear a peep tells me a lot about the character of this family.
Well, we haven't heard a peep from almost anybody, and not just the family. I mean, sometimes you think like it's no wonder somebody who's associated with a would-be assassin might want to keep their head down. They're not interested in running out and doing interviews. But we're barely hearing anything from anyone on this subject. In fact, I just saw something, Chris, which may not surprise you, but in the last hour, NBC News reports that the FBI has actually accessed the phone of the shooter, again, 20-year-old Thomas Crooks. And based on the preliminary analysis of the phone, quote, the information has not helped the FBI determine what Crooks' motive was for shooting at Trump, according to a senior U.S. law enforcement official. Well, how about that? So, Chris, we don't have anything. In fact, the FBI looks at his phone, which is, of course, like the one device where you practically run your life, no matter who you are. Everyone's got all this information, whether it's your Google searches or your contacts or your text messages or your Discord servers or your 4chan activity or your Reddit activity. I could name a million different places this guy might have been. The FBI has nothing? They have nothing. So do you, Chris, I'm starting to feel a Las Vegas investigation coming on, where this is one of the biggest things in American history, where we expect even small answers and we get nothing.
Well, like the FBI and like the Secret Service, they're compromised, and our only hope is Trump getting in there, cleaning house. And then slowly we'll get answers to a lot of information, things that have been taking place. Thousands of things that have taken place that are shady. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a million things. I mean, everything from the Epstein files to what happened with the pipe bombs on January 6th. How come we've never gotten clear answers on that subject? To the role that the feds played in that very day, to the Fed-napping, of course, of Gretchen Whitmer. You heard President Biden last night. He gives an Oval Office address. He cites the Fed-napping as a piece of evidence of political violence in America. That was planned by the Biden administration. It was planned by the feds. Excuse me, the feds planned that particular thing. Oh, we're going to pretend that this was leading up to the election. We're going to pretend that Gretchen Whitmer was about to be kidnapped by a bunch of right-wingers. Of course, it was planned by the FBI, the whole thing. And then Biden uses it last night in his Oval Office address. It just here, listen, here's Joe Biden last night. Violence isn't the answer.
Violence has never been the answer. Whether it's with members of Congress of both parties being targeted and shot, or a violent mob attacking the Capitol on January 6th, or a brutal attack on the...
As soon as he mentioned January 6th, I knew he wasn't serious about any of this.
House of former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Or information...
Nancy Pelosi. He brings up Pelosi, the guy who went into their house in San Francisco and hit Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. That guy, his name is David DePape. Remember David DePape's story? It looks like he believes all sorts of things all across the political spectrum, including some conversations that people on the right have had. But he also is a guy who is associated with a nudist colony who sold hemp jewelry didn't they have a Black Lives Matter flag that flying over the house? I mean, so it's just, you want to talk to us about political affiliations, like have some honesty here.
And intimidation on election officials, or the kidnapping plot against the sitting governor.
Which, again, this is a hoax that he's talking about, a hoax. It was planned by the federal government.
Attempted assassination on Donald Trump. There's no place in America for this kind of violence, or for any violence ever.
There's no place in this country for this kind of violence or any violence ever, he says in his Oval Office address. He also added that in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box.
The Republican convention will start tomorrow. I have no doubt they'll criticize my record and offer their own vision for this country. I'll be traveling this week making the case for our record and the vision, my vision of the country, our vision. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets. That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. You know, that's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets.
The battle box. Battle box. Remember that show, Battle Bots? Remember that? They get a bunch of people build robots and they fight each other. That was cool. Battle box? What is he talking about? On the White House website today, they have the transcript up. Do you know how they spelled battle? Because they transcribed his words exactly. They spelled battle B-A-T-T-O-L. Battle. It's a nonsensical word. They just put it down. Battle box. What? He said battle. B-A-T-T-L-E. We all heard it. He said battle box just now. It's not a mystery.
For America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box.
Battle box? What are they doing? So they put battle box, and then they crossed it out, and they wrote ballot box in brackets. Here's what he meant to say. That'll mark literally hundreds of times that the White House has had to correct the president's remarks this year because he gets everything wrong. Everything, including an Oval Office address on an oversized teleprompter speaking to the country last night. One more thing. He's supposed to have an interview tonight, right? Lester Holt. There's supposed to be an NBC interview with this guy tonight. We'll see. We'll see what he says. And we're already seeing some of the campaign reactions. The Biden campaign is already reacting to J.D. Vance's inclusion on the Republican ticket. And guess what they're doing? It's not bringing the temperature down. I can assure you of that. A good afternoon to you. It's now 4:36 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Brent Bazell from the Media Research Center. We talked to him about the media's reaction to the assassination attempt on President Trump, including the decision by MSNBC to get rid of its morning show today for fear that it may create more problems for them if they go on the air. And then Mike Davis will join us from the Article 3 Project. Big legal news today as a federal judge says that Jack Smith was unconstitutionally appointed to the role of special counsel to go after Donald Trump. Lots to get to, and you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The Secret Service failed to protect the past and future president of the United States. A bullet going through his ear, shot from just over 130 yards away, a clear line of sight from a roof looking down upon President Trump. How did that happen? For more on this, I want to bring in Susan Crabtree now. She's a White House and national political correspondent for Real Clear Politics and has been reporting extensively on what's going on inside the Secret Service. Susan, great to have you back with us.
Thanks so much for having me again, Vince.
Susan, obviously a million questions here, and you've begun to be able to secure some answers. How does a rooftop like that get left unguarded?
That is still an outstanding question. I have not been able to pin that down. People inside the Secret Service community just in an uproar over that myth. Obviously, it was a glaring mistake. And the fact that they had, I believe, after talking to several Secret Service sources over the last few days, that it was because they didn't have enough counter snipers there. They only the management only approved 2 counter snipers at one team. Usually they have 3 teams of 2 at an event this size and in an open air situation. So I think that's a real fail that the Secret Service is going to have to come to some accounting on.
How much money do we invest in the Secret Service each year?
$30.2 billion annual budget. I can't believe it's a lack of resources.
Did you say 3? 3.2?
$3.2 billion.
$3.2 billion. That's a lot of money. And in terms of protectees, the types of people who need the most protection, I would assume that's going to be the current president of the United States and his primary opponent, Donald Trump.
Well, you would think, right? But from what I understand is they were treating the Donald Trump campaign like any other former president, maybe not like any other former president, but not to the magnitude. It wasn't threat-based. It was more of he's a former president, so he's not going to get as much as the current president of the United States. And there were, from what I'm hearing, even though the Secret Service continues to dispute this, I keep hearing this from great, reliable sources that I've had for more than 12 years now on this beat.
Yes.
That there was repeated requests from the Trump campaign and from also within the Secret Service itself, those assigned to his detail for more security because the threats were heightened, obviously, this year.
Did you say that they didn't make an assessment based on threats? It was merely based on Trump's status as a former president, that he was receiving the level of protection he was receiving?
Well, I'm sure in the hearings we're going to hear them parse that out a little bit, better than it looks like right now. But it wasn't clearly threat-based. In fact, there was an event, a Joe Biden event in Pittsburgh that evening, and from what my Secret Service that I trust, their sources tell me,
yes,
that there wasn't enough counter snipers, there wasn't enough special agents to go around. Also, because the agents that were assigned to Trump's detail were stretched thin because of all the activity. They've been working 7 days a week for many weeks in a row, so that there was a lot of what they called the sources called temps on the ground, different sort of stringer type special agents from different field offices, and only a few, not even a handful. I want to pin this down a little bit better, but I'm hearing that there was only a few, maybe fewer than that, special agents that were regulars on the detail, on Trump's regular detail at that rally. So they were just all thrown together and expected to work like a team.
Now, there are at least two things I've seen that the Secret Service is officially disputing on the record. One of them is they say that Trump's request, the campaign's request for additional resources and being denied, that never occurred. They say that's not true. The other piece is that Jill Biden's protection, drawing down from Donald Trump's protection, didn't happen. They're claiming. I saw them tweet at you to try and say that's not true. That's not true. But as you point out, you're not just shooting from the hip, Susan Crabtree. You're reporting this out based on your sources in the Secret Service.
That's correct. And the Secret Service sources have not been wrong in the more than since 2014. I've been reporting on this beat since the Obama administration had their string of failures in the Secret Service, and there was a series of hearings, months of hearings that I sat through with Director Clancy at the time, and then there was a lot of mistruths that were told at those hearings that then the lawmakers had to go back and correct and grill Clancy to actually come clean on some of these mistruths. That the Secret Service has, especially the upper echelon, has a history of covering up, and it has a history of there's a culture of corruption. That's the phrase that has been used since back in 2014, and unfortunately, I don't see. They never followed President Obama and President Biden didn't follow the Blue Ribbon Commission that was convened back in 2014, 2015 to appoint an independent, someone outside of the Secret Service, maybe a law enforcement expert, someone with a long-time storied career in law enforcement, to the head the Secret Service, so that we could get outside of this sort of insular culture where they have uneven discipline.
Well, think about. I know you have a better sense of you have an encyclopedic mind for this about what the Secret Service has been up to. But two things immediately jump to mind for me. One of them is the cocaine investigation at the White House. Cocaine is found in the White House. The Secret Service says they're conducting an investigation. The investigation is over in basically no time. They destroy the cocaine and they say it's impossible to figure out who left it here. The other is in Hunter Biden's saga with his gun being thrown into a dumpster. The Secret Service was alleged to have been involved at a time when Joe Biden was not vice president of the United States, and Hunter Biden would not have been entitled to Secret Service protection in any way. And yet the allegation was that the Secret Service intervened to try and assist or maybe get a hold of the paperwork for the gun sale. That all stinks to high heaven. And as far as I'm aware, Susan, we still don't have any clear answers about any of that.
It strains credulity to say that they do not know, or there were no fingerprints on the cocaine bag. And I think that really started a renewed sense of people not trusting the Secret Service again. You see this sort of pop up, and then from time to time, there's different members, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, different chairmen rotate through the Department of Homeland Security Committee. And so there's not consistent oversight to make sure these problems that we've seen for years and years and years in the Secret Service, that they are solved. But, right now with this new director, we have a whole new set of interesting issues that are popping up because she is supportive of diversity, inclusion, equity policies and hiring practices that a lot of people within the Secret Service are questioning, and there were warning signs dating back 3 months ago, and that's when we saw that incident at Joint Base Andrews,
right,
with a female agent, basically having a mental breakdown and attacking her supervisors with her gun in its holster, and they had to wrestle her to the ground. And the Secret Service called it a medical incident, and I understand she's out on administrative leave. They won't tell me anything about that. Here's the situation. There is a there is a problem right now within the Secret Service because a lot of these agents and officers who dedicate their lives don't believe that the vetting of agents is up to the caliber it should be. And even when the female agents that you saw did perform well, I was told that there was a lot of praise for the female agent who spread her arms out to cover President Trump. But as Elon Musk sort of joked today, the agent is 5'5", and Donald Trump is 6'4". His whole torso was exposed. There used to be the feeling that you should have very tall Secret Service agents, at least as tall as the president himself,
right,
former president himself, guarding him. So, even though I've heard that there are women that have, exceed some men in their training abilities, their strength levels, all of the tests that in the extensive training they have to go through. But there are limits to some of the jobs that the Secret Service requires.
Of course. If your body is supposed to be the shield, it has to be sizable enough to protect the target. It's just a very basic principle, and that wasn't the case. We all saw it in that video. Kimberly Cheadle, I see a report today from an old friend of mine, Stephen Nelson, in the New York Post. His report today is that the reason Kim Cheadle, the Secret Service director, got the job was that Jill Biden's office pushed for it. Apparently, she was on Jill Biden's Secret Service detail back when Joe was vice president of the United States, and I guess she took a shining to the woman, and now she gets to be the director of the Secret Service as a result of that?
Steve Nelson is an old colleague of mine. I trust his reporting. I had not looked into that myself, but it is Jill Biden having a say that's part of this issue. Why some of I'm not sure that the president of the United States should be appointing his own Secret Service detail. They're often too close to these people that they are counting on to save their lives, and it creates this sort of almost too close for comfort or security in some situations. Are they choosing the right person? Or are they just choosing the people that they're most comfortable with, the ones that will go to bat with them for them when they need to not report things they should report? Maybe even get involved in a cover-up of their son's their cocaine habits. It's not a healthy situation, and we've seen it time and time again. And these agents and officers that are highly trained and are willing to put their bodies as human shields to protect the president deserve better leadership. And it is time that Congress provide consistent transparency and accountability.
Susan Crabtree, finally, just on the issue of the attempted assassination of President Trump, the most important issue of the day, why was Trump still on that stage and not removed at all when it became clear that there was any sort of potential problem or threat? It seems to me, we were talking to Eric Prince earlier. He was saying that he did the countdown on it, and he believes that the cops were alerted for at least 2 minutes prior to the shooting that there was a massive problem. Somebody was up on that roof. You heard Dan Bongino was saying today that his sources are telling him that they had eyes on this guy from the moment he entered the perimeter and then lost sight of him, which, of course, should raise a bunch of red flags. Why was Trump still on the stage? Why was he not stopped from going up? Why was he not pulled down in the first place?
Well, at the very least, he should have been pulled aside. There should have been immediate radio that there was a suspect, suspicious person crawling on a roof as soon as people started pointing to him. But that is the biggest mystery of this whole thing. I am told that there's a culture in the Secret Service and sort of I was told at first it was the rules of engagement. I'm told now it's a looser term. It's not set in stone. But there's this idea that it would be good if you have time to radio down if you're a counter sniper and you see such a situation, not to immediately fire on the person, but to call in the top detailee, the special agent in charge or the lead agent for the event to get permission to shoot. Certainly, you do not want to be shooting a fellow police officer if there was some belief that they thought maybe that person was a fellow police officer that was up there investigating something, but it's a problem that they didn't know which man was theirs, and very, very least that Trump should have been rushed off that stage.
And do we know at this point, were the snipers staring at the shooter? In the video that we've seen, they seem to be pointing in his direction. Were they staring at him, watching him, I guess I don't know what they were waiting for, but they were waiting.
They were waiting. They err on the side of caution. That's part of the culture, and do not shoot first and ask questions later. Make sure that it's not a fellow law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm told, that there was some concern that it might be a fellow law enforcement officer. They certainly don't want to shoot anyone innocent, bystander, or somebody, just a wacky person with a telescope. I was told, whether you believe that or not, that they couldn't figure out if that was a telescope or a gun, and it seems like fairly obvious it was a gun from the footage, but in the heat of the moment, they want to make sure. I'm told that this is part of the culture, and I'm sure that it will get a lot of.
It's crazy though.
A lot of vetting in the upcoming congressional hearing.
But hesitating to take the shot. We keep seeing that throughout the Biden administration, whether it's the Abbey Gate or now as there's an attempted assassination on President Trump, and of course there was a man who was killed in that crowd, a firefighter. Yeah. More on that coming up. In the meantime, Susan Crabtree, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Let me go to line 2. Keith is in Stafford now, and he's gone. He just literally, at that very moment, what timing? I wanted to go to Keith. We were going to talk about the difference. He wanted to bring up the radio issues that maybe happened between local law enforcement and the Secret Service. There are problems here. If you've got law enforcement, I don't care who you're with, if the whole point is to protect the president there, and you see something suspicious, at the very least, why don't you start getting agents closer to the president to begin to protect him if something goes sideways? Get him off that stage. Lots of questions, few answers. Coming up here, we're going to be joined by Brent Bazell from the Media Research Center. The media coverage this weekend, abysmal. What was it? What were they calling it? Trump rushed on stage after loud noises? I mean, loud noises. Corey, you had the video screen up here in the radio studio. You could tell it was an assassination attempt within 30 seconds. It was a problem for the left-wing media. They couldn't bring themselves to say it. Brent Bazell joins us. We'll talk about that and so much more.